Okay. One of the things that makes Catholicism unique is this belief in purgatory. And the idea is that after death, one must purify the consequences of their deeds to some degree. Jesus' sacrifice allows us to be forgiven. We go to confession and we're forgiven, yes. But there's a consequence of the things we do. There are consequences of the things we do. And sometimes we can't pay for those in this life. We have to pay for them in the next life. And the idea is purgatory. Because if we die without being able to make up for these actions, then God, in His mercy, allows us to be purified in the next world. I mean, this is an act of mercy. And Jesus' sacrifice, yes, allows us to be forgiven, which is wonderful, fantastic. But sometimes we have to pay for this. Now, the Orthodox do not believe in a place called purgatory. They believe, however, that prayers for the dead are effective and useful, and they do pray for the dead. So if they pray for the dead, there must be some reason to pray for the dead, and there must be some benefit incurred by the dead. Purification. Catholics believe that there is a state or a place called purgatory where we are cleansed. Okay. Padre Pio, they say, even went there. Padre Pio acknowledged purgatory, or the state of purification after death. So whatever you believe, I mean, that's your choice, but I want to give you the biblical basis for it. That's the purpose of this video. So one place where it's very clear is the second book of Maccabees. Now, there are two books called Maccabees, and the second one is what I'm going to be referring to, and it's about war. There's a war going on, and you could read it. It's actually very interesting. But it was written originally in Greek, 1 and 2. And most of the Old Testament is written in Hebrew, ancient Hebrew, not modern Hebrew. They're two different things, so don't confuse that. And the Protestants have thrown out the two books of Maccabees, 1 and 2. And that's why they don't, even know what this is. I mean, I remember I said to two ex-Catholics, believe it or not, which I told them, I said, you left the Catholic faith without even knowing the Catholic faith. They didn't even know that 1 and 2 Maccabees existed. Because when they studied the Bible, they had already become born again. So they went into that whole born again, realm, idolatry thing, whatever, rapture, all this stuff, these heretical things. And they didn't even know that these books existed. Well, they do. And they've been there a long time. And the Protestants just decided to take it out, as if they had that right. Anyway, what I want to do is read to you from the second book of Maccabees, chapter 12, verse 38 to 46. And there had been a war, and this man Judas and his other men, soldiers, were gathering up the dead. And they found amulets on some of the soldiers, which is, of course, idolatry, because you're putting faith in an object instead of God, right? So you're committing an act of idolatry because you think the amulet's going to protect you more than God would, right? Which is foolishness. So let me read it to you. Judas rallied his army and went to the city of Adullam. As the week was ending, they purified themselves according to custom and kept the Sabbath there. On the following day, since the task had now become urgent, Judas and his men went to gather up the bodies of the slain and bury them with their kinsmen in their ancestral tombs. But under the tunic of each of the dead, they found amulets sacred to the idols of Jamnia, which the law forbids the Jews to wear. Now, this translation uses the word Jew, and this word was not put into the Bible till, I believe, the 1700s, and it has nothing to do with modern people, the modern people who use that same name. These are two different people. This is not anything. This has nothing to do with the ancient, the ancient people and the modern people have nothing to do with each other. Really, it's referring to the ancient Hebrews or the ancient Israelites, as far as my understanding goes. But do not think that this is a practice of the modern people. These are an ancient people that are extinct, okay, pretty much. So it was clear to all that this was why these men had been slain, right? So it's clear that because they were wearing amulets, they lost the protection of God, right? That's what it's saying, I believe. They all therefore praised the ways of the Lord, Judas and his men there. They all praised the ways of the Lord, the just judge who brings to light the things that are hidden, right? The evil in the darkness, which he's doing right now, right, in our world. Turning to supplication, they prayed that the sinful deed might be fully blotted out. And the sinful deed was, of course, idolatry. The noble Judas warned the soldiers to keep themselves free from sin, for they had seen with their own eyes what had happened because of the sin of those who had fallen. Meaning, they were killed in battle because of their sin, because of their idolatry. That's what he's saying here, okay? He then took up a collection, get money, right, among all his soldiers, amounting to 2,000 silver drachmas, which he sent to Jerusalem to provide for an expiatory sacrifice. Which means, right, then this is the old temple, that they were going to sacrifice animals for the souls of these men who had committed idolatry. In doing this, he acted in a very excellent and noble way. Right, so it's telling us that praying for the dead is excellent and noble, inasmuch as he had the resurrection of the dead in view, meaning that he knew, this guy Judas, that there's life after death, right, for these men. For if he were not expecting the fallen to rise again, it would have been useless and foolish to pray for them in death. But if he did this with a view to the splendid reward that awaits those who had gone to rest in godliness, it was a holy and pious thought. Thus he made atonement for the dead, that they might be freed from this sin. So the idea, I mean, it's very clear here that, and I love this section. I just love it. It's so clear that it's noble to pray for the dead, and that when we do it, we can help atone for their sins, right? And that's what Judas did. And this is part of the Catholic canon. This is part of our belief. And the Orthodox, they accept this book as well. The Protestants are the only ones that threw the baby out, with the bathwater, right? That's what they did. And they're missing a lot. They don't have the fullness of the faith. They think they do, and they don't. They really don't. And there's so many heresies. And I feel bad for them, but some of them could be quite arrogant and quite egotistical in their belief, and they, condemn Catholics and Orthodox, etc. But whatever. That's their problem. So for us, though, I want you to understand where your beliefs come from. And they come from this. So it's a noble deed to pray for the dead, and that you pray for the dead, and it does make up for their sins. So this is an act of atonement. And that's what Judas did with his men. They collected money. They had prayers said, and it helped these men on the day of resurrection to, have a good afterlife by making up for their foolish sin of putting faith in an amulet to some ridiculous idol, which was really a demon, okay, because all these ancient idols are to demons, right, instead of to God. So well done, and just very clear. You can read it yourself. Now, another place, and this is in Matthew. And I'm going to go there. I have my little Bible here, so just bear with me. Matthew chapter 5, verse 25 to 26. Let me go to chapter 5, and let's see what it says there. I'm almost there. Chapter 5. Okay. So Matthew 5, 25 to 26. Let me find it here. The print is like microscopic. Okay. Okay. Now, this is a chapter, this is a section against anger, right? It says against anger. Let me read. Actually, I'm going to read from 21. I'm going to read Matthew 5:21, and then I'll go down to 26. It says, "You have heard the commandment imposed on your forefathers, you shall not commit murder. Every murderer shall be liable to judgment. What I say to you is," this is Jesus speaking, of course, "everyone who grows anger with his brother shall be liable to judgment. Any man who uses abusive language toward his brother shall be answerable to the Sanhedrin. And if he holds him in contempt, he risks the fires of Gehenna," which I think is an allusion to a hell state. "If you bring your gift to the altar and there recall that your brother has anything against you, leave your gifts at the altar. Go first to be reconciled with your brother, and then come and offer your gifts. Lose no time. Settle with your opponent while on your way to court with him. Otherwise, your opponent may hand you over to the judge, who will hand you over to the guard, who will throw you into prison. I warn you, you will not be released until you have paid the last penny." So Christ is saying we have to forgive others, right, who have hurt us. And that is true. We have to do it. There are people that have treated us horribly, I am sure, in life. Really. We've had a lot of injustice done to us, but we have to forgive them for our sake. It does nothing for them, as far as I know. It does something for us, and that is to release us from this burden of being resentful. Okay? This was something I really worked on this year, for the new year, and I'm glad God guided me to do this so I could be more perfect in his eyes. Now, Jesus says, though, he makes an allusion to a judge, right? He puts somebody in prison. So he says, if you don't forgive your brother, you're going to be put in prison until you have paid, right, the last penny. This, Catholics believe, is a reference to a state of purification after death, purgatory. And this is Christ himself. Okay? And it makes sense, makes complete sense. Okay? And here's another one, Matthew 12:32. So let me go to chapter 12. Okay, let's look. Once again, with the microscopic print. This is this very tiny Bible I have. So it says here, Matthew chapter 12, verse 32, but I'm going to start at 31. It says, that this is Jesus speaking, "That I assure you is why every sin, every blasphemy will be forgiven men, but blasphemy against the Spirit will not be forgiven. Whoever says anything against the Son of Man will be forgiven, but whoever says anything against the Holy Spirit will not be forgiven, either in this age or in the age to come." Okay, so the idea is that there's some sort of forgiveness after death. See, it says the age to come. So Catholics believe that that is an implication that there is a forgiveness of sin after death, right? And we interpret that as purgatory. Okay, now also there's a reference. I don't want to, it's getting long, but in the first book of Corinthians, right? There's two books. First book of Corinthians, chapter 3, and this is verse, I think 11 I'm going to go to. Yes, sir. Verse 11. Let me start at 10. Let me see. I'll start at 10. I go a little bit back because it's clearer, I think. And it goes from 11 to 15. This is the reference, okay? This is chapter 10. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Chapter 3, verse 10. Thanks to the favor God showed me, I laid a foundation as a wise master builder might do, and now someone else is building upon it. Everyone, however, must be careful how he builds. No one can lay a foundation other than the one that has been laid, namely Jesus Christ. If different ones build on this foundation with gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, or straw, the work of each will be made clear. The day will disclose it. The day will make its appearance with fire, and fire will test the quality of each man's work. If the building a man has raised on this foundation still stands, he will receive his recompense. If a man's building burns, he will suffer loss. He himself will be saved, but only as one fleeing through fire. Right? So the idea is that there's some sort of state where you're being purified through like a fire, right? So you're going to receive your reward for what you've done, or, you know, like it says, if any man's work is burned up, you have to suffer loss, and you'll be saved, but only through fire. So the idea is the fire of purification. That's the idea. So after death. Now, this is, of course, a Catholic view that there's this future state of purification. So you can look these up yourself. 1 Corinthians chapters 3, 11 to 15, Matthew 12, verse 3, Matthew 5, verses 25 to 26, and the second book of Maccabees, chapters 12, verse 46. But you should read a little before it. Anyway, I hope that makes it clearer and, makes you understand why Catholics believe things. Too many Catholics leave the Catholic faith without understanding the faith. And it's very sad because now they go into this gobbledygook of Protestant heresies. And it's a dark place. It's a dark place. And the world is seeing that dark place for what it is, and a lot of Protestants are starting to see the dark place. And I'm happy for them that they're either coming to ancient Catholicism, because I'm an old-time Catholic, I'm a traditionalist, and that's where I recommend you go. The newfangled church is, has some serious problems, and that's because there are elements in the church trying to change the faith. And this is what a lot of churches, have faced. And then, or you go to Orthodoxy. But stick to the ancient faith from the beginning. That's where we have to go. Right from Christ and the fathers of the church who are guiding us properly. Okay. And the wonderful saints. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. This is kind of long, but anyway, take care.